Hello and welcome back. This is another seventh grade math video. And in this video, we're going to be focusing on converting fractions to decimals. Okay, here is the first example we're going to do together. We're going to take the fraction 3 over 10 and rewrite it as a decimal. So here's our fraction right here. And when we type fractions, we have to use a slash in between, because that's just how we type them. Because we can't really put one on top of the other unless we're in some kind of format that allows us to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite the fraction as 3 over 10. I prefer to do it that way just so I can clearly see what number is the numerator and what number is the denominator. So to turn it into a fraction, we could actually do this into a decimal, we could actually do this two different ways. So I'm going to write this twice. The first way is to look at the denominator. Since the denominator is a multiple of 10, that means we can convert it to a decimal by looking at its denominator and determining its place value. If we have a denominator of 10, we know that the decimal goes out to the 10th place. So we can go ahead and kind of create that template for it. Then we're going to take the 3 and put it directly into that 10th place. Then we'll put a 0 right on top or right in front here just to make it look formal, and our answer would be 0.3. Here's the other way you can do that. So what you can do is you can take the top number or the numerator, and you can actually divide it by the bottom number or the denominator. But before you divide, make sure you put a decimal after your inside number. So this looks a little weird because a lot of times with division, our bigger number is inside, where the smaller number is on the outside. But when we're trying to turn fractions into decimals, we want to put the top number inside and the bottom number, the denominator, on the outside. So as I'm dividing, I realize that 10 does not fit into 3. So I'm going to put a 0 there. I'm also going to put the decimal up into my answer space right above where it is in the problem. So I have to, in division with decimals, as you may have seen in some of my other videos, you can't have a remainder. So what we're going to do is add a 0 and keep dividing. Well, 10 fits into 30 3 times. So I'm going to put that 3 up there. 3 times 10 is exactly 30. And when I subtract, I get 0 left over. So if I have no more numbers to bring down and no remainder, that means that I'm finished. So you can see either way, I ended up with 3/10 being equivalent to 0.3 as a decimal. Okay, here is our next one. We're going to write 1 over 50 as a decimal. So again, I'm going to rewrite this where the numerator is directly on top of the denominator, because that just makes it very clear which number is the numerator and which is the denominator. And you may have noticed that, my denominator is not a multiple of 10. So that means I have to do a little calculating before I can go ahead and rewrite it as a decimal. So I can't really put it in the tens place. I want to make it equivalent to either 10 or 100 or 1,000. So yes, I could divide 50 by 5 and get 10. So that could work. But what would happen is if I divided the 1 by 5, I would end up with a decimal on top of a fraction. So I don't want to do that. Instead, what I'll do is I'll try to give it a denominator of 100 instead. Now I know that if I multiply 50 times 2, that's what gives me 100. So if I do this times 2 on the top, it will be equivalent. So 1 times 2 is 2. So now we have it as 2 over 100. That means as a decimal, I'd have my decimal point here. Since it has a denominator of 100, it will go out to the hundredths place. So I'm going to create two spaces there, the tens place and the hundredths place. And I need to place my numerator or the end of my numerator right there. Since my numerator is just 2, that's the only digit I have to place. So I'm going to put that there. And if I have any empty spaces, I'm going to fill it in with a 0. And then I can put a 0 here in the front. So 0.02 is how we would write this as a decimal. Now, if you chose to use the division method, what you could do is take 1 and divide it by 50 like this, put a decimal here and a decimal up here, and go ahead and do your division. You should end up with the same answer, 0.02. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to rewrite the fraction 69 over 100 as a decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that with the 69 on top and the 100 at the bottom as the numerator, or sorry, the denominator. So since this already has a denominator of 100, I think the best method to use would just to be go ahead and place it based on the place value. So with a denominator of 100, that means I'd have the decimal here and the number would go out to the hundredths place. That means the end of my numerator or top number has to end in the hundredths place. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 9 here and the 6 here. I don't have any empty spaces, so I don't have to put zeros, but I can put a 0 in the front just to make it look more formal. So 69 over 100 is the same as 0.69 written as a decimal. Okay, here is our next one. We're going to write 1 over 100 as a decimal. So let me go ahead and rewrite that fraction, 1 over 100. Okay, now we already have a multiple of 10 as the denominator. So that means the easiest method is probably just to use place value to place it. So I'm going to take that 100 and create a decimal and go out to the hundredths place. So if my denominator is 100, that means the numerator at the end of the numerator is in the hundredths place right here. So I'm going to take that 1 and place it there since that is the only number in the numerator. I have an empty space, so I'm going to fill it in with a 0, and then I'm going to put a 0 in the front. So 0.01 is how you would write 1 over 100 as a decimal. Okay, here is our last example for today's video. We're going to take the fraction 10 over 11 and rewrite it as a decimal. So I'm going to start by rewriting this as 10 over 11, just like this. Now, this denominator is not a multiple of 10. It's not 10, 100, or 1,000. And it's also not very easy to convert this to one of those multiples because I can't really think of anything times 11 that would get me to 10, 100, or 1,000. So I think for this one, the easiest thing to do is to use the division method. So I'm going to take that numerator, which is 10, and place it inside the division bracket, and then place the denominator of 11 on the outside. I'm going to add a decimal to the end of 10 and then put it up in my answer space as well. Now I know 11 doesn't fit into 1 and it doesn't fit into 10. So both of those get zeros. I'm going to go ahead and add a 0 here. And then I'm going to try to figure out how many times 11 would go into 100. So I'm thinking, since I know my 11s, that 99 is probably the closest I'm going to get. So I'm going to put a 9 here and put a 99 down here to subtract. That will give me 1 left over. So now I have to add a 0 to my remainder and keep going. So I'm going to add a 10 there. Or not add a 10, add a 0 to make it 10. Now 11 will not fit into 10. So that's going to be another 0. To keep going, I'm going to have to add another 0 to my remainder. And we know from before that 11 fits into 109 times. So I'm going to put a 9 here, put 99 here, subtract it, I get 1 left over. Now I'm going to add a 0 so I can keep dividing, but I know that 11 doesn't fit into 10, so I'm going to add this here. Now this is starting to look like what we call a repeating decimal. And what that means is no matter how much I divide this, I'm still going to end up getting 909,090 over and over and over again. So to keep that easier, when we write that as a decimal, we're going to go ahead and put the 0 in the front of the decimal, and we're going to take the part that repeats, which in this case is the 90, place it here, and then put a little bar over it. That bar just indicates that that section of the decimal will repeat forever and forever in infinity. So you don't have to keep dividing. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you in another video soon.